Okay, welcome to the next video. We're going to be talking about the concept of sales velocity and how to engineer sales velocity that's based on predictable scaling and reduces risk at the same time. And the one thing I want to say here is the lower your sales velocity is, the slower your growth is going to be. But the big point before we dig into this really sexy table that we built is that this is one of the major reasons why I told you in video one why I tried a bunch of webinars and I couldn't get it to work. This concept right here is why, okay? Because the product, there was nothing wrong with the product. But what happens is if you take a realistic scenario and you think about it this way, right? So I had this webinar, I didn't know how to run webinars, and I had to go out there and start trying to sell this thing. So now you take a guy who's got like a semi-successful agency business, and I'm putting $100 a day into advertising. But the problem is I have to spend way more than $100 to sell or properly test a $1,000 product. I was trying to sell a $1,000 product. And for that reason, like the velocity of the sales was so slow that you're spending $100 a day, nothing happened, right? So Monday, $100, nothing. Tuesday, $100, nothing. Wednesday, $100, nothing. Thursday,
Sucks.
$100, nothing. I'm down $400. I don't know what's not working because I haven't done it before. And because of all this, right, again, the sort of lack of velocity in this case, this is why, for me, I couldn't get webinars to work. And I think a lot of people can relate to this because we all, again, we're not hating on webinars. Webinars work. It's just they're getting a bit repetitive and so many people are doing them and they're not really showing you anything. So people are kind of getting sick of them. But another side of it is it's so slow to make the sales unless you are able to just throw in, 5-10 grand into advertising and not really care about it and stay, keeping your emotions out of it. That's really, really tough, especially if you haven't done it before. So with that, I want to have you, Alan, kind of go through each of these to kind of explain how this all, how does all
All right,
make
cool.
sense?
Yeah, so velocity of sales, like the big idea that you gotta before we get into the table is just basically like if you put the whole point is like if you put $1 out there, how fast do you get $1 back?
Yeah.
Cash conversion cycle, and what the risk factor is. Robert said, it's like actually we ran a post on in our group and we asked people how many of you lost money on Facebook ads, and I think everybody said they lost money except two people, and they said no, and I think those people never ran ads.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so I'm sorry, everybody said yes, they lost money, right? And so the reason you lose money on Facebook ads is because you have something to sell, right? And for you to make improvements on whatever you're selling, your funnel, your process, you have to have something happening, right? Something has to happen on the page. They have to buy, they have to opt in, something happens. So you have to know, right? And then
some
every
kind
time
of
something
feedback.
happens,
Yeah.
you have to have some kind of feedback loop, right? And so when something happens, then you can see that happen and you can change things. You're running these experiments, right? So here we have 3 price points. Automatic Clients model, which is our model, we have $5, right? You have the traditional low ticket model, which is $100, and then you have the traditional high ticket, which is $1,000, right? $1,000 to $2,000, right? So next slide, please. So we go to testing requirements. So if you have a $5 price point, it doesn't matter what price point it is. You basically have to spend 5 times the price point in order to do a proper test, right? Yep. So if you have an ad, if you put up an ad, if you put up if you put up an ad, you put up a lander, a funnel, whatever you want, you have to spend 5 times to get. I think actually you have to spend. I think scientifically correct, you have to get 100 actions in order to make it a statistically valid test, right? Mm-hmm. But for the sake of simplicity, right? This is rule of thumb and works for us. So you have to spend $5, right? 5 times, right? So next slide. So if you have a $5 product, that means you got to spend, $25 to test. If you have a $100 product, you're going to have to spend $500 to test. And what happens is if you have a $1,000 product, you have to spend $5,000 to test. Now, like Robert said, you Monday you lose $100. Go to the next slide. Tuesday you lose $100. You keep losing $100, and on fifth day you're down $500, and you're nothing is fucking happening.
Yeah, there's no feedback. You just know that it's not working. That's all you know.
Yeah, you're throwing money into this black hole, right? And it's nothing's happening. You're just what the fuck, right? So it's people, that's why a lot of people are make a webinar work. And that's one of the reasons, I did really well with consulting, is because I did webinars for a long time. I knew how to make them work. And people would come to me with this problem, right? So we just fix economics and everything. So like one of the things I did webinars, like, hey, add an upsell. It's like, oh shit, fix things, right? So whatever. So anyway, so what happens is like next, so we talked about like, the earlier how we have the price point of like your CPA, right? So like your CPA basically has to be like your daily budget, meaning that you need to, or your front end product. So like for example, like how much are you willing to spend to acquire a customer? So with like a $5 product, we're at like, I mean, some days we get customers for like, I don't know, $12. Like there's a guy in the program now getting them for like $8. So like like it depends, but like we can spend up to $50 to get a $5 customer because of 10x rule, right? But if you look at automatic clients, like the target CPA, you're like $25, right? So that means like, and with the low ticket, it's $100, and the high ticket, you have a CPA of $1,000, because on a high ticket, you basically have to have your CPA break even, right? So you can spend $1,000 to acquire a customer, go down. So what happens is like you have what's called a testing time frame, right? So like if you put up ads, say on Facebook or anywhere, you have to have like a specific time period where that like, okay, like this is how long it's going to take me to get this feedback so I can make adjustments. So on a $5 thing, it's really cool because like if we put up an ad in the morning, like in the evening, we'll know if it works or not. So like one guy in the program, Mike, he's in the real estate market. He just did his offer. He put it out there and he spent like $40 and he made like $268. And he's like, what do I do now? I'm like, spend as much money as you fucking can, you know? Spend as much as you can. Max out that credit card, bro. So yeah. And like so he's nervous. So because he's like, this is crazy, right? Yeah, no, it's insane. And so like what happens is like with automatic clients, like we know daily. So in a week we can do like 7 tests, right? In a month we can have 30 tests. So if you can improve something 30 times in a month, that's a lot of improvements you can make, right? Where with a traditional low ticket, it takes you 5 days, and then with a webinar, it's 50 days, right? So it takes a while, right? So like the way it works is like with this model, like at a budget of $100 and a CPA of $25, selling a $5 product, we can get 4 sales a day. So we can know like
that's a lot of feedback.
Yeah, it's a lot of feedback, exactly. Especially like because like why is the feedback important? Because like look, somebody's on their phone or somebody's on their computer and they see your ad and they actually walk over to the kitchen, get their credit card, and they're like punching shit in, right? So like that's important. But with the webinar, we talked about attention. It's like, fuck, man. Now it's like you got to get somebody's, you got to get them to register. You got to get them to show up. You got to get them to watch 3 hours. They have to be convinced. They have to go buy this stuff. They have to talk all this stuff. So you get 0 sales for many days, and you have no idea what's working or not. You have no feedback. You can't fix it because nothing's happening. It's just nothing is happening. You're just burning money, right? And so then you're like, man, I got to be good at Facebook ads. And we'll talk about, why like Facebook ads, being good at Facebook ads is completely irrelevant. We'll talk about it later. And then, people are like looking for all these answers, like, oh, other people are making it work. Then so then they're like, trying to like master Facebook ads and shit like that. If you have a fundamentally flawed model and you can't test fast enough, it doesn't matter how good you are at Facebook ads, right?
Yeah, you could be the best in the world. It wouldn't matter.
Right, exactly. And so go down. So the next point we'll bring us to is the cash conversion cycle. So this is really important, right? Because if I put out $100 into Facebook, I need that $100 back real quick, right? Because I want to keep reinvesting into growth, right? That's why you can scale. It's funny, like when we first did this offer, it was like $37, and I think it was like I wrote the upsell. It was like $500 upsell, right? And like we did it, and like I remember like we went from like literally like spending like $50 to I think like $10,000 a day on Facebook. Like we were like banging it hard, right? Because the cash conversion cycle was really fast. And so like on $5 book, it's even faster, right? So meaning like if you spend $100, you get that money back. But look at what happens, right? Like if you spend $100, you get 4 customers back, and then one of those customers can buy a $5,000 program, right? Now you have $5,000 to invest. Now you can get, whatever. What's that? What would that be? Like 4 customers per 100. You get 40. Is it 40? 5,000? I'm bad at math. Like whatever. You get like way more customers. So you keep scaling up. Whereas with a webinar, you put $1,000 in, 2 weeks, here's $1,000 back. Shit, let me put another $1,000 in. It's very slow, right? Very slow. Which gives us basically the sales velocity, meaning like how fast can you get the sales, which is super high. And then, which is everybody's favorite word in the entire industry, scaling, right? Like how do you scale? Like everybody wants to fucking scale for some reason. Like look, honestly, like scaling is irrelevant because at some point, if you're getting $100 customers a day and you're making like 50,000 a month, maybe that's like a nice spot to be in. Maybe you don't want to be at 500 customers a day, So whatever. Scaling with a $5 book is very predictable. And here's what I mean. If you can micro, like you can, what I call micro scaling. So imagine like one of those knobs, like one of those like old radios, and like you can like fine tune, like you can fine tune, you go click, 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 like you know exactly where to scale. So if it's working, you can scale it, you can double it, you can triple it, you can quadruple the budget, right? And it's very predictable. It holds steady. And then like if something happens, if the ad doesn't work anymore, you can just scale back and it's fine. No harm done, right? With a high ticket program, it's like you got those knobs, they're like very clunky. You go clunk, 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 right? And it's like you don't know. Like if it works, then if you triple your budget, then you might just lose your ass. Or if it doesn't work, if you increase your budget, it might not work. It's like it's chaotic, right?
Yeah.
It's completely chaotic, and which brings us to the risk factor. So like the risk is basically, investment is just like mitigating risk, right? So it's like risk factor is very low, right? I mean, can you recover for spending $100? Yes. Can you recover for spending $500? Yes. Can you recover for spending $1,000 on it? Yes, right? But with a webinar, man, it's like if you have to spend $10,000 to test this damn thing, that's a lot of risk. Like, you could buy a lot of other things for $10,000, because, and so the thing is really about money. It's just like alternatives. Like if you have $1,000, if you spend it on this, and if you spend it on a webinar, if it doesn't work, then, you could go spend that money on other things like that you would actually enjoy. And so that's why we think webinars have their place depending on industry, but this is our experience, right? And so like, if you talk to anybody, if you look at it, like nobody can argue any of these points here.
Yeah, look, and I would say if I was a billionaire, this stuff wouldn't really matter. But the truth is, it's like we have emotions, right? And there's like an intangible here that's really important. And it's like if I don't have a bunch of money, lots of money coming in every day for sure, then for me to go out there and start spending $100 and not seeing a return on that, I'm going to start to freak out and make bad decisions. But the whole thing here is like, if I spend $100 on selling my $5 book, even if it's like really bad, I'll still make $60 back that day. And I'm like, okay, something's really wrong here, Whereas,
feedback.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas here we'd be like, okay, I'd spend 100, but I would also make 0 sales, so I would be out $100. So it's really, it's really that feedback loop is really where it sort of comes back to it. So this is why personally I just really love that we switched over to this and started doing that low ticket. So
well, if you go back one more thing, I want to say something like, and the typical guru model of selling webinar stuff is like, my webinar doesn't work, right? Oh, that's okay. Just join our $2,000 a month program or whatever the fuck that is, right? Like, so we can make it work. Basically, they're selling like, insurance on things. It's ridiculous.
Yep. So the other thing we want to sort of transition into is this whole idea of, we say selling, right? Selling. But really, the person or the company that's going to be able to win and thrive in sort of any competition level, any market, is the company that's going to be able to create relationships on demand. And so this is why we talk about, like we pull out all the buyers in a market, and really what we're doing, is we're building, sort of initial relation or surface relationships with people. So I like the way that you kind of go through this slide, Alan. So I'll kind of have you describe this. But yeah, this is kind of the ecosystem of Facebook,
so so every ad network is like an ecosystem. So for example, like every ad network is an ecosystem. The way it works, and like, so for example, like Facebook, is like the social ecosystem. It's like social. Like Google is like the information ecosystem. Instagram is like pictures. YouTube is like video content ecosystem, right? That's fine. So like, but it's all human beings in each one of these ecosystems, right? So like each ecosystem can support and sustain a limited amount of buyers and sellers, right? So for example, like if you look at nature, like let's say you go to the Africa and there's lions and zebras, right? If you have 100 lions, you have 100 zebras, right? That means like the lions would eat most of the zebras, and there wouldn't be any zebras to reproduce, and then most of the lions would die, right? Because it disrupts the ecosystem, right? So like if you look at this like global warming thing, whatever, like if one animal in there dies or gets overloaded by a predator, the ecosystem dies out. So like you got this whole thing, now like on Facebook, like these gurus being like, oh, I'm an apex predator, look at me, I'm an apex. Like what the fuck? Like what are you like what are you fucking like predator? Like predatory behavior? You're out there like hunting customers? Like come on, man. It's like, what are you fucking like the comic book dork? Like fuck off, right? So like you got people like apex predator, whatever, right? Cool. But the problem is like, when you have a lot of people doing that in an environment, it sucks up a lot of the customer doesn't know what the fuck to do, right? Like they don't know what to do. It's like, this guy's selling that, they start selling that. And that's why, like, on a lot of these ads, you'll see a lot of angry people, right? Like a lot of angry people, like, fuck off and all this stuff. It's because of that, right? And so we say, well, let's not just worry about, being an apex predator or whatever and selling to these people. Let's focus on, tips, ideas, whatever, and let's build that surface relationship first, right? So like our whole thing is harvesting relationships, right? It's precursors, right? So for example, like, what's an example of a precursor? Let's say, for example, like food you eat, right? Like if you eat the food, then it becomes, you have energy, right? So it's like, if you get somebody's relationship, then you can get somebody to have a $5,000 sale, right? So what we do is we focus on not just selling, but harvesting relationships out of the ecosystem, right? And then once you do that, then you can move them through the awareness process, and then you can sell them $5,000 things. You can help people out. You can build a community. You can have them help each other out. You can do a lot of good, right? You can do a lot of good when you think about it like that. So like I said before, like we bonk, right? Like meaning like in the marketplace, like we literally suck out all the buyers. Now, not free leads. Nobody cares about free leads. We suck out all the buyers in a marketplace, like on a daily basis. That's why, like, if you go from, for us, like, getting to 100 customers a day, we just turn on one ad, it's like 100 customers a day. Getting 300 customers a day, a few ads. But then if you go from 300 to 500 to $1,000 customers in the quote unquote agency market, it gets a little more challenging because we're bonking. Like, you're literally, there's no more customers to stuck out, right? And so that's why that works. So anybody who can harvest the most relationships and not really focus on selling can get the most people over there, can build a biggest tribe, biggest audience, help most people out, and then have that progression where you develop this from surface relationships to advisor.
Yeah, this is really all about just like bringing people into our world, but it's on demand, right? It's not putting out a YouTube video and hoping that people find it. It's like, okay, we have an awesome product. It's priced where they get 10 times more than they paid for it, and we put that into the marketplace. And we suck out all the buyers, we build that initial relationship with those people, then we bring them into our world, and then from there on, I mean, look at you, you're here watching this video right now. You somehow ended up here because of all of this.
Yeah.
And one of the ways that we like to approach this is, I've mentioned it super briefly before, but anytime I've had a problem in my business and I've fixed it, it all comes down to me having done this, and it's tipping the scale. And I call this the easiest tactic in the world to increase conversions. So I kind of, use the word tactic in a sarcastic way here, because to me, tactics are kind of like, they sound kind of like scammy or sleazy or whatever. So this is the easiest tactic in the world. It's like, give people way more than what they paid for. So if you give them $1,000 worth of value and you charge $5 for it, you're going to have a really amazing effect happen. This is what happened in my video business, where I used to try to sell like high ticket videos, like $3,000-$4,000. I struggled like crazy to get those sold. I took one afternoon and asked myself this question: how could I offer a respectable service for way less as far as price goes? I came up with a price that was 65% less. I emailed everybody who had shown interest before and declined because of the pricing, and we did $20,000 worth of sales in the next week. And that literally, that transformed my business overnight, and it was because of this. I 10x the value, and I priced it at 65% less, and that's what happened.
Yeah, one of the interesting things that's kind of like weird, right? Like when we run ads, like people will complain in the ad, and they bitch. They're like, "What? How much is a real book? Like, how much is a real book?" Like, we get like, I'm like, what? Like they think that $5 is actually like some type of bait and switch. We're like, no, everything is it's just $5. They're like, oh, and then they go buy it, and then go to the next slide, and this is what happens right here. Like it's just like people fucking thank us for selling them the stuff in the ads.
Yeah.
Like, and you can see this is like, and what's crazy is like we've had people go like PM me, and they're like one fucking moron was like, "Oh, it's all fake comments. It's all fake comments." It's like one guy from India got like he wanted to be like a social justice warrior, and like he went on this fucking rampage. Like, I'm like, dude, it's like
it's $5.
It's $5. And like, you know, and this is the thing, like if people, I'm like, you know, if people buy it, we're just, fuck it, just keep it, whatever, who cares? And that's the other thing, like refunding $5 doesn't hurt. Refunding like $1,000 webinar, that hurts, man, right?
Yep.
So yeah, and so like, what we tell people is like, look, if you see all these people on our ads, go fucking message them, go ask them how the book is, go talk to them, right? Go in the group, go ask around, we don't care, right? Like it's full transparency, right? And it's kind of like weird, it's like, oh, you know, and then they're like, but it's only $5, like where does, you know, how much is the book? I'm like, no, it's $5. Like, and they're like, oh, and it's like a real mind fuck for them, right? And it's actually like a good feeling.
It's a good feeling, and again, like every time I've fixed my business, it was because I did that. I was like, I 10x the value, and I charged way less than I was before, and you could just see like the conversion rate just goes through the roof. Like whatever was difficult selling before just became super easy. I had it with my agency, and I had the same thing when I was trying to sell, you know, my course for $997 with a webinar. I made it a $5 book. All of a sudden, you know, 300 buyers a day. Like it's insane how quickly things can change when you do that.
And the cool thing about this is like Facebook loves this type of shit. Like, like if you have issues with ads, like we just, you know, have this template, we email Facebook, we're like, hey, look at all these comments, people love this shit, give us, you know, turn them back on, and they're like, okay, done, right? No issues. We haven't had like one issue. We've never had our account banned. We've never had, like we've had, you know, ads disabled or whatever, but we have a template we give them and it works every time, you know, nothing. Like I said, like I had my personal account banned because like the guy linked me to his crypto shit, whatever. But yeah, this is awesome, you know, like it's really cool, and like people just, you know, like one ad gets like 1,000 comments or something, and like people really like it, you know. And once you start out with like we said, like surface relationship, when it begins like this, right, then it's like people are thinking, well, fuck, if they gave me this much value for $5, what the fuck are they gonna give me for $5,000, right? And they're like, damn, right? And like they're all in.
Yeah, and more importantly, all of this, like it just feels good to go from, you know, to go from taking more than you're giving to giving more than you're taking. It's just a really awesome place to be in.
Yeah. So one thing I want to add before before the next video, go back, is like we have one client. She sells to mental health therapists, and like she does such a fantastic job on this whole process. Like we actually track how many people download the book, the versus. So like I think like out of all the people that bought her $5,000 program, I think only 3 even downloaded the book. Not to mention read it, just downloaded it. And it's like, that's how powerful this is. Like they just go from the ad to buy the book to buying the $5,000 program without reading the book.
Yep.
Yeah.
She crushes it. Cool. So some really important stuff in here. At least, you know, for me, I've seen the difference in the results when you have that really fast cash conversion cycle where you can put $100 in, and even if you suck, you know, you're getting 60, 70 back the same day. It really like allows you to stay in there and optimize and make things work. So that's been really huge. And then just
motivating.
And then just tipping the scale, like give more than you take, and you're going to see a huge difference in conversion rates. Like just 10x the value and lower your price, and it's like use that to build that surface relationship, and then, you know, you have to add things on the back end to offer people, but that sort of takes care of itself if you're able to harvest those relationships every single day. So yeah, anything to add before we move on to the next video?
No, let's keep going.
Sounds good. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.